Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ursula. I'm an indie author of historical fiction, and I'm wearing black lipstick to get in the mood for Halloween. I normally don't wear any makeup at all, but I'm making an exception because it's October. And what you see in the background is one of my art pieces called A Panoply of Polygons. Today I'm going to be discussing my current work in progress in honor of Preptober, which, if you don't know, it's building up during the month of October to NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. In November, the objective of that is to write at least 50,000 words. I misunderstood for a long time, so I didn't officially begin participating until 2004. And by the way, this shirt I'm wearing, I got that because I won the first year I officially participated. I really liked the design, and I I resumed after many years of hiatus and went back pretty much from scratch and another alternative history of mine. And I'm also writing an alternative history again this year, which I began in June. Now, I first got the idea in 2004. It's about Dante and Beatrice, and I got the idea after I first read the Divine Comedy. I really liked the idea of them falling in love. It was not unrequited in my imagination, and getting married and basically living happily ever after, but I had no real story components or an outline beyond the general concept. And while I do personally lean heavily towards a more old-fashioned style, which is largely episodic and about the journey through life instead of like an extreme, like plot-focused, very action, I just like character-based stories, and that are generally slower paced as we get to grow and evolve with them through the journey through life, punctuated by important historical events and also frequently coming of age. But obviously you still need to hang even an episodic, deliberately slower paced and more character driven story on some kind of story trajectory, and have like plots along the way. You can't just amble around like basically doing nothing. And also, something really important I wasn't able to figure out until this year was how would Dante still write his magnum opus if he never lost the love of his life, because the premise of the Divine Comedy is kind of like based on Beatrice being deceased and leading him through the afterlife. And so like if he never lost her, how would he get the inspiration to write that or even like put her in that role? And so I finally hatched the details this year after thinking about it for a long time. There are a lot of projects in my queue, like things on hiatus, things I would like to write someday, things I'm in process of writing. And I have like a memory, like an elephant. I like keep entire plots and storylines and books memorized backwards and forwards in my head for years before I'm at liberty to write them down, or I get to that spot in the queue. And the working title, it might be the permanent title too, I don't know, is called A Dream of Peacocks. And this is a little book I'm using from Peter Popper Press, which is very good to do my notes and things, research for the book. It's based on there's I don't know if it's true or not, but there's like, I like it, a story that when Dante's mother, Gabriella degli Abati, was pregnant with him, she had a dream that she gave birth under a laurel tree by a stream, and her newborn baby ate the berries that fell out of the tree and drank the water from the stream, and then he turned into a peacock. This was perceived as a portent of Dante's greatness, and the peacock also has wonderful symbolism across many different cultures, like eternal life, resurrection, like going on in the face of adversity, things like that. And I did need to do a lot of I'm still doing it, but I've got like a lot of basics so far. The preliminary research for this book, because I've never written about the Middle Ages at all. The most farthest I've gone back in history at the moment is the 18th century, although I have read about these earlier eras, and I also was my degree is in history, so I obviously studied a lot too, but I wasn't really intimately familiar with the Middle Ages enough to feel confident writing it like I am with the 19th or 20th centuries, or even a little extent to the 18th century, which, by the way, I haven't really done much work beyond the 20th century until recently, which is why it's so important when I have gone back to earlier eras to do research. You can't just start writing and bang it out. You need to have like familiarity with it from the jump, or readers will obviously tell you're just like making it up as you go along or don't know what you're talking about. And I have been interested in the Middle Ages since I read the Decameron in late 2002. By the way, if you missed my book tag BookTube newbie tag, I will be I'm planning a series on this book, in the future. I don't know when yet. I'll need to do a lot of research and preparation first, but that possibly, hopefully next year, look forward to that. And I had always, not been interested in the Middle Ages for various reasons, kind of off topic here. But when I read the Decameron, I really, really got interested in it for the first time, not even taking a class in medieval European history and UMass, which was taught by a visiting British professor from Harvard, really got me interested in it. And it was only until I read all these wonderful stories about like normal life during the Middle Ages that I finally got really inspired and passionate about it as an era in history, although obviously I still am deeply uncomfortable with the extreme anti-Semitism that was unfortunately prevalent throughout most of Europe during that era. But other than that, I'm really interested in much of medieval history and culture. And unfortunately, most people, when they first think of the Middle Ages, I guess they generally think of England and maybe a little bit France, but they're not so familiar with Italy unless they're already interested in Dante or the Italian early Renaissance and this big golden age cities of that era. But generally people don't know much about Italian history, and so that's also something fun to research for me. And I did have a moment of doubt regarding the point of view I wanted to do for this story. I do 99.9% of all my stories in third person omnipotent, because not omnipotent, omniscient, because it's not really the old-fashioned style with the God mode where the writer is making value judgments about characters and giving spoilers. The book thief. So it's generally just, writing in third person about a large ensemble cast. And I got the idea to write this book in the first person, which is a huge shock to me, because I do enjoy doing short interludes in first person, letters and love notes and op-eds, things like that. But writing an entire book in first person, it's just not naturally the style I've written at in many, many, many years, except when I did go back for Nano 2007 to resume basically entirely from scratch, basing a little bit on memory from a book in diary form I had started many years ago, taking place during the 19th century, and that obviously works because it's in diary form, and there are lots of tricks you can use to make first person not feel so I, me, my, mine, my, all the time, because the trick is to not constantly begin every sentence with a first person pronoun, and a good tense or point of view, you don't really notice it at all necessarily. One of my biggest writing compliments was when one of my readers on my blog, unfortunately she had a serious illness and wasn't really blogging anymore. I hope she's okay. She was really surprised to say oh, until I read this excerpt, I didn't realize you're writing in present tense. That was for my third Russian historical journey through a dark forest, and that was a big compliment to me because it was done so well. She didn't even realize it was in present tense. And I felt, who am I to write in the first person about one of the greatest writers in history? In Italian, Dante is known as Il Sommo Poeta, the supreme poet, and here I was writing in first person about him. Come on, how could I be so chutzpahdik? If you don't know, chutzpah is a Yiddish word. It means extreme self-confidence or audacity, and the suffix dik turns a word into an adjective, but the first person felt right for many reasons. For example, Dante wrote his two greatest masterworks, the Divine Comedy and La Vita Nuova, in first person. He frequently, breaks the fourth wall to directly address the reader and makes you really feel intimately drawn into his story. He's not just dispassionately writing about himself or thinking only about himself. He's actively involving readers, both present in his own time and future readers for as long as world there is. And so it did feel right, but I just felt who am I to write in the first person about one of the greatest writers in history, and when first person generally isn't a point of view that comes naturally to me or that I enjoy doing, because I do have a bit of burnout because so many books these days, particularly YA, are default position is write in first person no matter what, and these narratives often start to all blend together for me, because a lot of them feel kind of like they're trying to imitate Holden Caulfield and be all snarky, and they generally don't merge with distinctive personalities, particularly because it's been done so much. But you can do it really well. You can nail a good first-person narrator. Now, I did begin the book on the 9th of June at 9 o'clock at night, since 9 was Dante's favorite number and it appears often in his work. Then it was really slow going for a while until I overcame my initial doubts and cowardice, as I've been explaining, because I had thought I would begin it on the 1st of June because I'd been wanting to do this for 17 years, and I had finally pulled together a storyline and many details, but I just couldn't do it immediately. And it reminded me a bit about Dante's own moment of hesitation and cowardice at the end of Canto ad Inferno. He's really hopped up about going on the otherworldly journey promised, particularly since it means he gets to hang out with his idol. But then at the start of Canto 2, he's seized by a fit of cowardice and second thoughts. And this is the Mark Musa translation. I'm memorizing it in the Italian, but I'm not 100% confident enough in reciting the lines smoothly and seamlessly like I can do with Canto 1. I still have much work to do with Canto 2, but hopefully I will be doing a recitation video when all that is smooth and mastered. Then I began, O poet, come to guide me. Tell me if you think my worth sufficient before you trust me to this arduous road. And then he talks about how Aeneas and St. Paul visited the underworld and the importance and necessity of why they went there, and then continues, but why am I to go? Who allows me to? I am not Aeneas, I am not Paul, neither I nor anyone would think me worthy. And so, if I should undertake the journey, I fear it might turn out an act of folly. You are wise, you see more than my words express. And I think it was a good point that I did have some second thoughts, hesitation, and cowardice. Writers should have a healthy dose of pride and chutzpah, but it should be combined with humility and caution. If you're going to write about real people from history, particularly in the first person, you need to be 100% motivated by love and respect. Unfortunately, I've written a blog post about this. Perhaps I should do a vlog about it as well. This trend recently about writing about historical figures, particularly in the first person. It generally doesn't seem like they're motivated by genuine interest in their lives or love and respect. It's just oh, this is a trendy person right now, it will be cool to write about this person. You get a sense generally when someone doesn't have genuine passion for a subject, and that really shows in the book and makes it difficult to read, or a painful experience, or not as good as it could have been. And many times these books also feel well, if you're genuinely interested in this person so much, this doesn't really even read like a novel so much. Why not just write a biography about this person, or a nonfiction book about a certain aspect of her or his life? It can be done, but you have to pull it off really well and be motivated by the right reasons. And it will be obvious in the finished product if you only chose that person to just mindlessly follow a trend, or because you thought he or she sounded cool, And I'll read you the synopsis I've written of this book. It's obviously leaving out a lot of details that happen in between just the most pertinent parts. And at the time I wrote it, I used the name Firenze, which is the Italian word for Florence, but I just recently discovered that was not the name used in the Middle Ages. It was Fiorenza. So, that's obviously something that's fallen out of fashion, but I will be, changing it in the book and using it throughout from now on. Now, the tagline is, what if one of the most famous love stories in history wasn't unrequited? When Dante Alighieri and Beatrice Portinari meet as children on May Day 1274, they're instantly drawn to one another with a strong, precocious love, which increases as they get older. Their dreams of marriage come to an abrupt end when their fathers arrange their betrothals to other people, but an unexpected second chance comes when they're both widowed in their early 20s. This happy life is torn asunder in 1301 when black Guelphs violently seize control of Fiorenza. While Dante is getting his 3 daughters into a flight-ready carriage, his little sister Gaetana runs into the courtyard and says her newlywed husband was just murdered. By the time Dante goes back into the house, Beatrice and their youngest child, Brunetto, have mysteriously disappeared, and the increasing danger makes it impossible to search for them. Dante receives a letter stating his pregnant wife and only son will be held as hostages until he buys their freedom with an exorbitant ransom. The Black Guelphs also demand he return to Fiorenza to be tried on numerous false charges. He begins planning a recapture of the city with other white Guelphs, but none of their plans come to fruition due to bickering and treachery, and Dante has the additional responsibility of protecting his daughters and sister. And by the way, it will turn out in the book that his sister is pregnant at the time, and also his youngest daughter, Fiammetta, is a very sickly child who is deaf in one ear because she was born prematurely, so he has to take very special care of her. When Dante fails to appear in court, he's sentenced to exile. If he's caught in Fiorenza, he'll be burnt at the stake. Shortly on the heels of this nightmarish development, he receives a letter claiming Beatrice and Brunetto are dead. During this darkest night of his soul, Dante begins writing a long epic poem in which he imagines Beatrice reaching out to him from beyond the grave to save him through an otherworldly journey. But as his oldest daughter Gabriella insists, the only evidence Beatrice and Brunetto are dead is the word of their untrustworthy enemies. A reunion and happily ever after could be destined for this lifetime, not paradise. So that's basically some rambling preliminary thoughts on this alternative history I'm writing, and my plans for it in the future. Hopefully I will do a good chunk of work on it during Nano. Unfortunately, for the second year running, there won't be any in-person events for NaNoWriMo, so we'll have to do it all on our own or virtual sprints and like chat rooms and things. Not being able to get out to do my writing has been like a huge, unfortunately, strain on my mental health during like coming up on 2 years of lockdown, which is pretty freaking ridiculous if you ask me. That's a whole other rant for another topic. But hopefully you enjoyed my thoughts, and I will have some more thoughts on Preptober in the future. And I think my next vlog will be reviewing this book, which isn't as good as I hoped it would be. So see you very soon. Thanks. Bye.